So I just wanted to say before you start asking questions, hello, good morning. And I'm the Member of Parliament for Sandwich Gulf Islands and the leader of the Green Party, but you probably all know that already. So, questions can start. Yes?
How do you get attention from the media?
How do you get attention from the media? That is a great question, and really it's very difficult. As leader of the Green Party and as one member of Parliament, and now there's 2 Green members of Parliament, we don't get the same amount of attention as the bigger parties. We do a lot of press releases and do work that never gets covered in the media at all. And so my general approach is not to try, like I don't run at microphones and wave and say, look at me, talk to me. I actually think that the only way to get their attention is actually to be accomplishing things where they have no choice but to cover it because we've been the first party to notice something or I'm the first MP to raise an issue, and then they end up covering it. So it's a long slog, really. It's a good question, but I do try. Do you think I get any media coverage? Do you see it? Okay, good, great. We'll go to the table.
Fellow in red shirt.
Okay.
What kind of change do you have?
Well, what kinds of changes? Since I got elected to Parliament, I managed to keep the government from shutting down the Plant Health Centre, so I felt good about that. And I was the first member of Parliament to read, maybe the only member of Parliament to read, the omnibus budget bill in the spring of 2012, and I put forward 400 amendments and forced Parliament into 24 hours straight of voting. So it wasn't the change I wanted. The change I wanted was to stop the worst parts of the bill. But it made such a big impact that everybody noticed it. And that was part of the reason why the fellow members of Parliament elected me Parliamentarian of the Year that year. So when you do something that gets noticed, it's not for the purpose. I don't do things just to get noticed. I was trying to protect our environmental laws, but it definitely got noticed. Now, are you helping me spot people?
I'll do a few spot. Yeah,
Okay.
there, buddy.
Why did you join the Green Party?
Why did I join the Green Party? I had never been a member of a political party in my whole life, and I didn't join the Green Party until 2006. So I was already 52 years old before I joined a political party. But the reason I hadn't joined a party was I was working in the environmental movement, and I was working with a group called Sierra Club of Canada for a very long time, and before that working as a volunteer. And I felt being a part of a party would make it harder for me to change the mind of politicians who belong to other parties. When I decided that I had to get involved in politics, and that was a longer answer, so I'll shorten it up, and just say I didn't find any other party that I could believe in. I like some of the policies of all the parties, but the Green Party is the only party where I like all the policies, and the policy I like the best is that it's a grassroots democratic party, and if you don't happen to agree with the party on policy, you're free to speak your mind. So I believe in that.
Okay.
You were one of the first hands up.
Since being a member of Parliament is a hard job, how do you prioritize your time to being a lawyer and an author as well?
That's a great question. I do have another book coming out, and I've just sending the manuscript back to the publisher in 3 days, and most of my book, honestly, was written on airplanes between Ottawa and Sydney. There's really nothing else for me to do on airplanes. I'm too afraid of flying to sleep, and so I work on books when I'm on airplanes. Prioritizing my time is a tough job because I generally have 4 times as many invitations to events and meetings with people as there is time in the day. I usually work at least 14 hours a day. Some days, like last week, I had a couple 19-hour days, and I work 7 days a week. So that does create a lot more time to squash things in. So my hardest thing is to find any time to take off, to get a little bit of, recharging batteries. That's the hardest thing to find.
Wait. Now, she said a very interesting thing. We're going for a piggyback. She said it's really difficult to recharge your batteries. What do you wonder about? Follow up to that question. Yes? Who's got a follow up to that question? Yes.
How do you get the time to recharge your battery?
Yes, I have to talk to the people who organize my calendar and say, look, I need some time. You've got to give me some time. So we shoot for 1 day a month off. I don't always get it. And I also make sure now I'm much tougher about saying, don't cancel my gym time. So I try to get to exercise 3 times a week, and that's very helpful because I find even when I'm tired, if I can get to the health club and work out, I feel more rested than if I just had that amount of time to have a quick cat nap. And the other thing that recharges my batteries big time is any time I get to spend with my daughter. But she's now living in Halifax, where she finished university. So even time talking to her on the phone is very helpful for me for getting my energy levels back up. And how about you?
What does the Sierra Club do?
Sierra Club is a great nonprofit, membership-based environmental group. Sierra Club of British Columbia is based right here in Victoria. They work to protect forests, protect endangered species, protect our salmon, have good climate policy. I'm no longer involved because in politics you can't be involved with charities. You can't really, it's not appropriate to actually be really engaged with an environmental group while you're also a member of parliament. You want to give those environmental groups their space, because I wouldn't want anyone to think Sierra Club in BC supported the Green Party or supported the NDP or supported any party. They've got to be completely independent. But I do support them a lot. I do whatever I can to help because they're really good. They're a really good group, and there's a lot of youth groups out there. The Sierra Youth Coalition is still active. And people can get involved in. Now, way over there, because I think that table hasn't had. Yeah.
What interests you most about the environment?
Surviving. The thing I like about the environment is we'd be dead without it. So the air we breathe, the water we drink, the trees, the forests, everything around us makes our life possible. So some people think, and some I hate to say, some politicians think, that there's human beings and we're really important, and the economy is actually really important. And then there's that environment, which is kind of a fringe thing, for frill, for people who are flaky. But you can't have the human stuff or the economy stuff. None of it can survive unless the environment is healthy. So I'm mostly interested in my grandchildren having a really, and you guys, having as beautiful a world as the one I've grown up in, which means we have to take care of the environment now and not hand it off to you to fix later. So, way back there, yes, young lady by the computers, yes.
What is one of the things you learn after failing to win a seat in the parliament?
Say it louder, darling.
What is one of the things you learn after failing to win a seat in the parliament?
Oh, well,
Repeat.
the things, what are the one of the things I learned after failing to win a seat in Parliament? One of my favorite things, I have a young woman now she's all grown up now and has her own kids, but for years I was supporting a little girl in Lesotho, Africa, whose parents had died of HIV/AIDS. And after I lost in Nova Scotia, when I was really hoping to win the seat in Nova Scotia, and she sent me a letter. English isn't her first language, so she didn't mean it quite this way, but she wrote me a letter and she said, "Whatever you do, dear mother, don't be discouraged. Remember, you will not always be a loser." And I thought, okay, well, it puts a lot of perspective on a circumstance when you realize it's not that bad when you have, this dear child all the way on the other side of the world in Africa with no parents and living in poverty, and she's trying to cheer me up. I thought, it's not that bad what's going on with me. So all I learned was that, you just don't give up. Never give up.
This guy right here.
How many books have you written as an author?
This next book will be my 9th. Yeah, I love writing. It's my favorite thing. If I wasn't in politics, I would be a writer and do nothing but that. It's my favorite thing. Yes.
What made you so interested to learn about politics?
Oh,
Repeat.
what made me so interested to learn about politics? It's kind of I think it was, unfortunately, I think it's Leon Trotsky who said, if you're not interested in politics, politics will be interested in you. There is politics, and the same way that environment is what keeps us alive, politics and government is what makes the decisions about what kind of society we live in. I don't like the decisions that were being made by Stephen Harper, so I got interested in politics to stop Stephen Harper from wrecking my country. That's why I got involved in politics. And it made me interested. It made me very interested. Yes, way back there.
How do you find your leadership in 2014?
How am I planning? Well, we're going to have, in 2014, my plan is to keep, I'm hoping to have a private member's bill passed in Parliament. That would be a huge help to people with Lyme disease. So that's one of my main goals for 2014 is to get that bill passed, which is calling for a national Lyme disease strategy. I'm also pushing hard for Canada to change our climate policies. We're negotiating internationally with a big negotiation happening in Peru in December, and the completed treaty has to be ready by 2015. That's the next deadline for negotiations in Paris, and Canada's not being helpful. So in my own mind, I have got 2 things I've got to do this year. Now, there's other things. I'm working with my Green Party colleague, Bruce Hire. We both want to get a bill passed by a Conservative. It's called the Reform Act, and it would really help democracy in Canada. So for 2014, I have some top goals and then lots of other ones. Most of them are about policy and changes in real that matter. They're not so much about the political party I belong to. Now, on this side of the room, I haven't paid as much attention. Yes, young man there.
Why did you, as a teenager, like, what were your main reasons for becoming interested in the government?
When I was a teenager, what were my main reasons for being interested in government?
I mean,
Well-
sorry, the environment.
The environment. Okay, because I was going to say I mostly was interested in the environment starting when I was in grade 10, was when I realized I wanted to be an environmentalist and an environmental lawyer. And those days we had different issues than now. And what's really good news that I like to share with young people is that the issues that we were worried about in 1970 when I decided to be an environmentalist are issues we have solved now. So that's good news. We used to have phosphates in detergents that caused pollution in waterways. We had a problem with acid rain, which we've largely solved. So I was interested because I could see that that nature, which I loved, and the environment, which gives us all life, was in trouble. And so that's how I got. You have a follow-up?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not really a follow-up.
Oh.
It's a question. You know this person? His name is Dallas.
Yes, I do. Yes.
He's my dad.
Oh, well, there you go. It's a small world. How about you, sweetheart, with red hair? Yeah, say hi to him for me. Yeah.
How can one person affect change?
How can one person affect change? By believing you can. First step, believe you can. Second step, don't give up. And know that one person has power and clout in any democracy anywhere in the world. So I'm sure you've looked at examples. I don't know if you know the Free to Be Me group, but Craig Kielburger was 13 when he took on our Minister of Foreign Affairs and demanded that Canada do something about child labor in products around the world. There are a lot of examples of one person changing policy, changing the world, and the number one thing is also find some friends who will work with you, but believe that you can, and you will. I really mean that. I'm sure that that's the worst thing that ever happens in a democracy is when people think, oh, one person can't, no, one person can't change anything, nothing ever changes. That kind of attitude is poison in a democracy. People getting active and believing they can will actually change everything. So, yes, you put your hand way up.
What's your favorite book that you've read?
My favorite book?
Yeah.
That you wrote.
That's my favorite book that I wrote. I think it's the book about how we saved South Moresby. It's called Paradise One, and it's about stopping the logging on the southern third of Haida Gwaii and creating Guayahanas National Park. And so it kind of reads more like fiction because it's a story as opposed to some of my books which are crammed full of facts. But I think my next favorite book I wrote may be the next one that comes out, assuming it comes out okay. But it's going to be called Who We Are, and it's about Canada. And I'm looking for someone who hasn't asked a question yet. You haven't asked a question yet.
What inspires you to make change?
What inspires me to make change is believing that we have to, number one. We can't continue on the path we're on of using a lot of fossil fuels and throwing the garbage from our pollution into the atmosphere and assuming that it doesn't really matter if England's underwater and the rest in southern U.S. is gripped with drought and if Australia's on fire. I don't believe that those are things we can just accept and say, okay, well, bad luck for those places. We're all at risk from climate change, so what inspires me to make change is knowing that a better world is possible, and it's also essential. Yeah.
Last question.
Oh, I guess you're the last question.
Yay! What do you have any concerns about the Jumbo Glacier?
Do I have any concern? Where is the Jumbo Glacier? I'm embarrassed to tell you. Where is it?
It's up in,
The Kootenays. I should know that. Well, I'm concerned about all the glaciers. All around the world, the glaciers of the Rockies, the glaciers in the Kootenays, the glaciers in the Alps, the glaciers in the Andes. All the glaciers all around the world are in retreat, and they're in rapid retreat. One of the top places I'm really worried about is the water table, the ice that sits, some people call it the third pole, because you know we've got the North Pole and the South Pole, But the Tibetan highlands have a water table that is a glacial. And if we lose that, that's the water source for the 5 major rivers of Asia, and billions of people depend on that water. I am really worried about losing glaciers, and that's one of the reasons that I work so hard on trying to get limitations on carbon pollution. That's one of the reasons why I started saying my goals for 2014. Get people involved at the grassroots and politicians in climate solutions globally in time for the negotiations that will happen in December in Peru. I was in negotiations that were really bad because they were, well, we had a lot of bad negotiations lately, but in November I was in Warsaw for the climate negotiations and we didn't make enough progress. So we really have to push hard for climate progress at the next negotiations in Peru and for local action. So yeah, I'm very concerned about glaciers everywhere because they're in retreat. And I think my time is up. Seitu, Seifini, thank you very much. Bye,